Greetings, everybody. Hi. Hi. My name is ChaLee Ridge of Ridge Lending Group. Most of you that'll probably see this video or receive this video know me or know of me, I hope. And actually, I need to start by saying that this is the first of many recorded videos that I am going to be creating for a video library that I'm putting together for my clients so that the commonly asked questions are available and ready at a moment's notice versus having to schedule to speak with me and waiting for the content or answers to, like I said, commonly asked questions. So I'm in the process of that. This is my first one. First time I've done this. I'm kind of behind the times when it comes to certain technology and marketing. So you'll notice some of that if you come back and look at some of these videos and are looking for education. Yeah, I should probably also comment or mention that you're going to find me in this kind of attire. I've earned it. I've paid my dues. So oftentimes in my office, I will be in my workout gear. So hopefully that doesn't put anyone off. And if it does, sorry. So today, what I have chosen for my very first education recorded video, is a very common topic for investors that has to do with the differences on a refinance of an investment property. There are three of these different types of refinances for investors. They are called cash out refinance. There are two of them in that category, and a rate and term refinance. Rate and term just simply means that you're taking an existing loan and you will be exchanging it for a new loan. Maybe you need to get out of a hard money loan. Maybe you're on a 15-year amortized mortgage and you want a 30-year. Maybe your interest rate is higher and rates are lower now and you just want to improve the interest rate. It could be a variety of different things. But a rate and term refinance simply means replacing one for another. There will be no cash back to the individual. The cash out refinances, there are two, like I mentioned. The first one is called the delayed cash out refi, and the second one is the standard cash out refi. They're very similar in most ways, barring a few specific qualifying criteria that I want to explain. People often kind of confuse these two. And a lot of times when we're talking about the BRRRR strategy in particular, and for those of you that aren't familiar with BRRRR, that is buy, rehab, rent, and refi. Pretty common strategy right now for investors in residential real estate. So a lot of times they have one understanding of a cash out refinance that kind of derails a little bit what the bigger picture goals are because of timing. So I really want to focus on that. Let's start with delayed. Actually, I'm just going to compare the two. So the common differences between delayed and the standard, like I said a second ago, is timing, speed, really. The delayed refi requires no seasoning when needing to use that ARV, after repair value, to determine the loan amount based on the loan to value maximums. I'll come back to that. Standard has a seasoning requirement of 6 months of title ownership of the individual before they're able to use that ARV. On a single family residence, 75% of the ARV is allowed. So for example, if you had a $100,000 value or appraisal, we will be able to give you 75% of that as a loan, $75,000 on a single family residence, versus if we're talking about a 2 to 4 unit, it's going to be 70% maximum loan to value. And I don't think that I mentioned this. I should probably quickly quantify. This assumes we're talking about conventional financing. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, most of you have probably heard me say this. We refer to those as the golden tickets because this is the highest leverage at the lowest interest rate you will find literally on the planet. Maybe I should have told you guys these are going to be super informal. I'm just going to do my thing and share my knowledge. Okay, so 70% 2 to 4 unit off the ARV, 75% for the standard. Speed on the delayed refi, seasoning of 6 months on the standard cash out refi. Now, what differentiates one from the other? It's the way that you've purchased the property and what capital was used to acquire it And then also whether or not you've gotten the entire acquisition cost listed on that final CD, which stands for closing disclosure, when you originally acquired the property. Let me explain. So the delayed refi requires a cash acquisition. You had to have used your sourced and seasoned funds, liquid sourced and seasoned funds, okay, or that you've liquidated. The other thing about the delayed is that the total acquisition costs has to be listed on that closing disclosure. Example, if you would have paid $50,000 for the property and the rehab was another $25,000 with the expectation that we were going to get a $100,000 ARV, the full $75,000 in that example would have to have been listed on that final CD in order for the individual to have access to up to that much back. The rule of delayed refi says you may not exceed cash back to the borrower more than what the final CD shows as their total acquisition cost. Okay, so let me just take that example and go one step further. If you purchased it for $50,000 and the $25,000 that went into rehab came afterwards, per delayed refi, you are not eligible to receive any of that extra $25,000 because it wasn't listed on that final HUD. There's some other details about that I can talk to an individual one-on-one. I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole. But let's take a second and also account for, finally, when I said sourced and seasoned, it has to be a cash acquisition. If you had gotten hard money or private money, right, that attached to the property, that was a lien against the property, that is no longer eligible for the delayed refi product. Okay, you used leverage to acquire. That is not part of the acceptable restrictions or rules, qualifications. So in that case, it would fall into the standard cash out refi. Now, here's where it gets a little bit more complicated. All of that still applies to cash out. If you as the individual used hard money to acquire the property, right, but we're only going to turn around and do that rate and term, we no longer need the seasoning. It's a different product. So we can go back to the 75% of the ARV where we get our appraisal, we get the loan, and we simply pay off the existing lien, that lender, that private or hard money lender, plus the closing costs without any seasoning. Okay, two different things, rate and term versus cash out. Now, I think I've explained those two pretty well. Let's move on to the standard cash out refinance. This is, while it does require that seasoning, all of those other prior restrictions that I've just mentioned, cash acquisition, having all of the associated applicable acquisition costs on that HUD, all go away. HUD, I used HUD. That shows you how old school I am. I meant CD, closing disclosure. So within the standard cash out refinance, none of that matters anymore. We will go 75%, again, single family residence, off the ARV with no restriction to how much cash you can get back or how you acquired the property to begin with. And that's the differences. It's one of the more common questions that I get, or I find that there's extra confusion within some of that. So I chose that as my first topic for you guys. Hopefully there's some value add in that. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to contact us. Our website, if you want to check that out, is www.ridgelendinggroup.com. info@ridgelendinggroup.com is an email. I'm on that distribution. Or certainly you can call us toll free at 855-747-4343. That's 855-74-RIDGE is an easy way to remember. We're here on standby at your service. Thanks.